Good Erev Shabbos from Beit Shemesh. So it's a couple hours to Shabbos. I want to add on to what we said. So Bilam, in Chumash Dvarim, Rashi says, Bilam shows up and he says, I want to get schar for the 24,000 who died. Because Bilam, after he couldn't curse Bnei Yisrael, his curse turns into a bracha. Also, his idea of making Bnei Yisrael sin, that falls on his head. It doesn't work. So Bilam shows up and he hears 24,000 people die. In the Magefa, he shows up and he says, I want to get paid. Rashi says they paid him and they killed him. So now you have dead Bilam with his money. He got his money. And the Mishnah strangely says, and one of them is Bilam. So why would Bilam have a chelik in Olam Haba? And it doesn't make sense. Was he a Jew? So I want to just uncover this for a second. In Shar Hapesukim, Reb Chaim Vital writes b'shem da Arizal that the 24,000 who died in this Magefa were Gilgulim later on in life on the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. Okay, we'll get back to that in a second, the connection between Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, but the idea of that when Bilam came and said he wants his money, he didn't realize that he gave a much bigger gift that he should have asked for. What came out of all the averos of Klal Yisrael that they did in Shittim? Pinchas. When Pinchas saw Zimri, he took the neshamas of Nadav v'Avihu. They went inside of him, says Ramosha David Valley. They went inside of him. And Pinchas, hu Eliyahu Hanavi, he's Mashiach. That Mashiach is not only born out of Pinchas, Eliyahu is, but Mashiach is born also from Bathsheba. The second son was Shlomo, and Shlomo was Choviv, and that's why Shlomo took Bas Parai on the night of Chanukas Hamikdash, to go deep inside and see that every single nichshol that we have in life is only an opportunity for us to grow. And like Tosfos says that in Rosh Hashanah that you can't daven for somebody. How could you possibly daven for someone if everything is written in Rosh Hashanah? Tosfos answers that it's only written in Rosh Hashanah when the person is going to get sick. When the person is going to get better is not written. So my bracha is that at this Shabbos, when we come into Shabbos, we should take upon ourselves to understand that all the nisyonis that we have, all the averos that we do, b'mezid, b'shogeg, or behesach hadas, all of that, till achar ma'isa, is Ratzon Hashem. The only question is when are we going to do tshuva? When are we going to say chatasi l'Hashem? And obviously, I'll add that I said it's a two-word magic, chatasi l'Hashem. If you haven't seen the previous video, I suggest seeing that. And there's a video before that, which is 14 minutes long, which I bring in more ideas about this. So what does this mean? It means that when Sfas Emes says a very deep word, he says that the only action we actually have, you have to go deep over here, that really every person, Elio Dessler has Shar Bechira. Maybe a little controversial, but everybody in every Jewish home, there's Shar Bechira. And Rabbi Yodessa talks about it, and he breaks down to a very, very minute point of where exactly do we have Bechira. Sfas Emes takes this even one step further than Rabbi Yodessa even dreamed of, and it's based on his grandfather, Chidushai Hari, who raised him when he was a Yosim at 10, 11 years old. He came to learn by the Chidushai Hari and learned for 18 hours a day. So he says the most beautiful thing. He says that if you understand that we daven v'sachazirenu b'tshuva, we ask Hashem v'hasasoter milfanenu me'acharenu v'tachazirenu b'tshuva shleim lefanecha. We ask Hashem hashivenu. We ask Hashem to come to us. We know the Gemara, the Midrash says, I come to you, you come to me. La'ilam la'yard shchina lamata. The idea is, says the Sfas Emes, the only thing we could ever want to do is to want. Everything else comes from Hashem. As long as we really deep down, when we say chatasi l'Hashem, we want, The entire Teshuva process, which is a long process, and it could be through Gilgulim, but it's a good process. There was a famous Gadol in Eretz Yisrael. When he was younger, he was asked to go. He wanted to meet a person who was Baki in Kol HaTorah Kula, but it was an Ilui, Mamash, a Gadol, it was a secret Gadol. He came to him, and he asked him, he asked him a question about the afterlife. He asked him a question about what is it to die? What is it, Gehenim? So he looked at him and he said, Halavai, Halavai. And I think this was with Baruch Rosenblum, who went to this Gadol and when he was younger. And he said, Halavai, Halavai, that you should reach the matzav of Gehenim. Wow. Because when we read in the Midrash and we read in the Tanakh, read the Nevi'im, Hashem says, B'soif hayomim, it says in Yeshua, not in Yeshua, in Yeshayahu, Yutes, I think Chof, it says, Ami Mitzrayim nachlasi Yisrael. Tivarech Ami Mitzrayim, Hashem says. That la'asad lavoi Mitzrayim will be blessed. Until Adam HaRishon figured out at age 130, he met with Cain, and he saw Cain came back, and he asked Cain, how could you do this? I don't believe in Teshuva, says Adam HaRishon. How is it that a person could separate himself from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because all Klala all Bilam wanted to do was to separate spiritually and physically. Klala is a separation. Bracha is a connection. So how is it possible that we have a connection? The only connection we have is that Hashem wants us to have a connection. So we fall. Yes, Adam HaRishon, he fell. He meets Cain, and Cain says to him, I did Teshuva. And Adam HaRishon, the Midrash says, what is Teshuva? And he explained to him. And Adam HaRishon took out a pen, took out a quill. He took a piece of parchment, and he said, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos, Toiv Lo Hidos L'Hashem. How great is it to admit to Hashem? How great it is to say to Hashem, yes, Chotosi L'Hashem. And with that, he had Sheis. So, getting back to the original point, when a person comes from the Sfas Emes, we see that all energy that we put in, all koiches come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Sfas Emes says that the koyach of Chet comes from Teshuva. And Teshuva was created before Brias Ha'olam. Before the world was created, there was Teshuva. The only way bad, Chet, separation, Chet, Aveira is missing. When you're throwing a dart and you don't hit the spot, that's a miss. The only way Chet could exist is through Teshuva. So when a person is able to understand that Chet, if you look in the Nevi'im, go through all the Nevi'im, every time there was a Muhammad, what did they do? They asked the Urim V'Tumim, they asked Shmuel, they asked Natan, they asked Gedolim, what should we do? HaYehuda Nala Rishon, should the Baal Teshuva go first? We see the same idea, it's a machlokes in the Midrash. Why it says, when the Mishkan was created, so there was a worry, Moshe had a worry that perhaps they will fight which side they'll be on. And Hashem said they already know from Yaakov Avinu. And they know from Yaakov Avinu that Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun are in the Mizrach. They're on the right. And Yehuda is the Baal Teshuva. And Yisachar is Torah. And it still calls that side Yisachar. Because Yisachar is really better than the Baal Teshuva. And that's that real Emes. But if you look on the Merkava, on each side there was a symbol. It was the Nesher, the Aryeh, the Adam, the Dudoyim, that was Reuven in the south. He was the Baal Teshuva in this case. Not Yehuda. Because Yisachar got it on the right. So you take, that's the Aryeh is on the Mizrach. So the Aryeh of Yehuda, even though we say Yisachar, that Torah comes before Baal Teshuva, because the Tzad Yamin, the Tzad Mizrach comes before the Tzad Daram. And Yehuda was stuck with Yisachar Zvulun, because Yisachar is Torah. And if you have Yisachar, you can't have Yisachar without Zvulun. But Yehuda was the Tzad of the Kisei Yaakov. The tzad of the Merkava, the Aryeh, that was the symbol that the Gemara says, Tov l'tzadik, tov l'shchenoi. Tov l'tzadik, tov l'shchenoi is that an oile rosh, oile shcheno was that Korach came from the south. So both bechinos are true. But the bechina of tzaddik is only for a tzaddik. And if a person is not a madrega of tzaddik and he takes on the bechina of tzaddik, he has a problem. He has a problem. He has an unforgiving God. He has Hashem who doesn't forgive. So that's the message I wanted to give over. Mirz Hashem, if we have time, Motzei Shabbos, I'll do a follow-up on this, which will be more in Hebrew and more be'iyun. Thank you very much. Have a good Shabbos. Also, I'm trying to work on my sound quality. I am a radio announcer, so I do have a decent mic, but I think for this setup, I'm going to have to do some improvements. So if you find that the sound audio, tell me if this